There were other routes leading west, such as the Santa Fe and Overland Trails, but one would become a well-known route that would inspire books, films, and the imagination of many kids. This route would be known as the Oregon Trail, and a stretch of that trail would be known as the Great Platte River Road. This route would start from humble beginnings as a trail used by Native Americans, trappers, and traders. Westward migration would follow the same route, followed by the United States military, freighters, the ill-fated Pony Express, the railroad, and eventually Interstate 80. From trappers and traders to modern-day traffic, the Platte River Road would become America's early superhighway. Historians will long view this as one of the largest mass migrations in American history, with hundreds of thousands of people making the journey west. Starting as a mere trail used by trappers, traders, and plains tribes, the Platte River Road would wind its way through the Platte River Valley in present-day Nebraska and Wyoming. This road will become a highly traveled thoroughfare, connecting the east to the west, and would be paved with the blood, sweat, and tears of those who traveled it. The beginnings of the road would start near Fort Kearny, but would have tributaries feeding into it. From the southeast, with the Oregon Trail passing through Rock Creek Station, and the military road coming in from Fort Leavenworth. From the east, the Nebraska City Fort Kearny cutoff would shuttle freighters west along what would become known as the Great Platte River Road. Some of the first non-trappers or traders to go west was the Whitmans and Spaldings, a group of missionaries. Narcissa had this to say about their passage through what would become Nebraska Territory. Platte River, south side, 6 days above the Fort Laramie Fork, near the foot of the Rocky Mountains. June 27th, 1836. Dear Brother and Sister Whitman, we were in perplexity when we left Liberty, but it has been overruled for good. I wrote Mother Loomis from the Oto Agency. We were in still greater perplexity there while crossing our baggage. Husband became so completely exhausted with swimming the river on Thursday, May 9th, that it was with difficulty he made it to the shore the last time. Mr. Spalding was sick. Our 2 hired men were good for nothing. We could not obtain much assistance from the Otos, for they were away from the village. We had but 1 canoe, made of skins, and that partly eaten by the dogs the night before. Since we came up with the camp, I rode in the wagons most of the way to the Black Hills. It is astonishing how well we get along with our wagons, where there are no roads. I think I may say it is easier traveling here than on any turnpike in the States. Westward migration started as a trickle in 1840, jumping off at Independence, Missouri, and slowly increasing each year. By the mid-1840s, the term manifest destiny had been coined, and by the early 1850s, the floodgates had opened, and immigrants were pouring into the American West by the thousands. In 1850, over 50,000 people were on the move to Oregon, California, and Utah. In 1852, nearly 70,000 people were headed west. Some headed west for land, others the hopes of striking it rich in the California gold fields. The increase in traffic would take the route from a trail and turn it into a highway. With this influx of people came the need for protection, and in the spring of 1848, the United States Army would establish Fort Kearny, and in the summer of 1849, they would purchase Fort John, renaming it Fort Laramie. These 2 forts would provide immigrants with both protection and a place to resupply when needed. The tide of immigrants would begin to slow. The travel along the trail would continue due to the heavy freight traffic. In 1855, William H. Russell, Alexander Majors, and William B. Waddell would enter into a partnership and secure a contract to deliver all military goods west of the Missouri. By 1859, they would purchase the mail route to Salt Lake City, and later acquire the rest of the route leading into California. Messrs. Russell, Majors, and Waddell were also working on a project that they hoped would revolutionize the mail service. On April 3, 1860, the first rider of the newly established Pony Express would set out from St. Joseph, Missouri, with the last rider along the route arriving 10 days later in Sacramento, California. By October of 1861, the Pony Express had ran its last run. The telegraph was now the main way to get messages across the country, and with the outbreak of the American Civil War, this line of communication would need to be protected. The western forts were being drained of regular troops for the war in the east, and were being replaced by state volunteer units. One of these units would be the 11th Ohio Volunteer Cavalry. The 11th Ohio would be sent west to man the posts and keep the lines of communication open, and a young man by the name of Hervey Johnson would be one of these troopers tasked with this mission. Like many others, Johnson would write letters home to family talking about his thoughts and feelings of this time out west. He also left some descriptions of places along the Platte River Road. September 20th, 1863. We are camped on the south bank of the Platte River, 3 miles below Fort Kearny. You may be surprised at water being scarce so near as large a river as the Platte, but such is the fact. The Platte is as dry as the big road, and the way we get water is by digging in the bed of the river, which is composed of fine sand. At the depth of 18 inches in the sand, water may be found almost anywhere in the bed of the river. October 12, 1863. Fort Laramie. The plains are nearly bare of live grass, there having been no rain of any account for 16 months. There was no water in the South Platte as far as we followed it, and but little in the North Platte, which we followed for near 300 miles. November 8, 1863. Fort Laramie. Scott's Bluff is a ridge of bold, precipitous rocks across which the old California Road passes. Through a narrow, winding passage, the rocks on either side are almost perpendicular, 300 or 400 feet high. Ash Hollow is a deep, rock-bounded gully leading from the hills on the south into the river. The greatest natural curiosity that I saw on the march was Chimney Rock. This rock, at a distance, looks like a church spire or monument. It rises out of a broad mound several hundred feet in diameter and deeply indented with rough gullies. The rock is at least 300 feet high. In 1866, the Platte River Road was becoming the main route of travel for freighters heading west. One such gentleman who was in the employ of a freighting outfit that year left his accounts in a diary he kept along the route. He would not only leave his accounts behind, but he would also leave sketches of sights he saw along the way. William Henry Jackson was not only a freight employee, but an artist as well, and he would leave behind paintings and photographs along with his sketches. Jackson and his friends would hire on with an outfit and set out for Salt Lake City from Nebraska City and make the journey west, having this to say shortly after they had left. Monday, July 2nd. Well, here we are, 50 or 60 miles from Nebraska City on the prairie bound for Salt Lake and Montana. Little have I thought I should ever come to this. I am at last a veritable bullwhacker. Fort Kearny, July 11th. At last we have reached the first point or place of any importance on our route. We have thought and spoken of Kearny as if it was our destination and nothing beyond it, but now we regard it as a starting point. Here all routes converge and diverge. We make no stop but go right on our way. There is a regulation in force that no train of less than 30 wagons be allowed to pass the post for protection against Indians, who are said to be very troublesome, and it is feared that there will be a general uprising. On the heels of the freighters would be the railroad. On February 26, 1863, the Nebraska Advertiser out of Brownsville reported that a board of commissioners had been appointed for the Union Pacific Railroad and Telegraph Company. By January of 1866, the Nebraska Herald out of Plattsmouth was reporting that the rail had been stretched as far as Columbus, and they were already predicting that the railroad would make Nebraska the center of commerce. October of 1866, the Union Pacific had lines open to Kearney, and by the same time in 1867, the Union Pacific would reach Cheyenne, Dakota Territory. The railroad would follow the same route as those who came before them and call the Platte River Road their home. The winds of change would begin to blow again with the coming of the automobile and the roads they would drive on. These roads would stretch out along the old Platte River Road, starting with Highway 30 and then eventually Interstate 80. From the first people to journey across its path all the way up to today, the Platte River Road has truly been America's superhighway. From furs and people, military and mail, freighters and freight trains, to homesteaders and modern-day goods, if something or someone needed to head west, chances are they were on the Platte River Road, even if that was 500 turkeys being driven to Denver in 1863. This road was truly an early superhighway.